So, to the problems and prospects of education in Nigeria, one of the issues that should be at the top of the in-tray of the incoming president and should take center stage in terms of the priorities of the new administration. Some figures suggest Nigeria has gone from having 10 million children out of school 3 odd years ago to somewhere between 15 and 18 million today. Those who are in school have poor infrastructure, inadequate classrooms, not enough teaching aids like computers, laboratories and libraries, and poor quality teachers. To say that education is in difficulty here is to grossly understate the enormity of the problem. Education is unquestionably in crisis in Nigeria and has been for years. But while successive governments continue to promise free, superior education, which they fail to deliver, how can the children of the poor afford to get the kind of quality learning that can help them break out of poverty? Well, the KNOSK charity secondary school in Abuja has found a way to fuse enough value into learning for the poor in this country. The school targets students from poor families and gives them a chance to study science, technology, maths and engineering for a fee of just 100 naira a day. Take a look at this special report, courtesy of the Reuters news agency.
12-year-old Faridat Bakare shows off a prototype for a solar-powered car made from cardboard, which she developed with her classmates at Knox Secondary School in Nigeria. She is one of the 82 pupils in the school that targets students from poor families and gives them a chance to excel at science, maths and engineering for a fee of only 25 cents a day.
Before, I didn't know how to use the laptop, the monitors and all this. So now in the Knox 100 school, I've made solar car, I've made solar itself, and I've used solar to charge a phone.
Students are provided with uniforms, books and lunch with the fee, and girls are given sanitary pads once a month as well. Irene Bangwell is the founder of the school.
When we decided to run the KNOSK school, we had to ask ourselves, what kind of education does the poor man's child need to break out of poverty? That's what we set out to do. We didn't set out to open a classroom and say, oh, there's another new school for poor children. No. We said, how can we fuse into learning for the poor enough value that they can break out of poverty?
At least 10.5 million children in Nigeria do not attend school, the United Nations said in January. That's the highest rate in the world. The most affected are girls, children with disability and those from poor households. KNOSK school runs largely on donations. School officials visit each family to establish if they have capacity to pay full fees, which would be about $159 a term. Bakare, who lives with her mother and 4 siblings in a poor neighborhood in Abuja, heads to the markets to help her mother after school every day.
I want to become an electrical engineer who works with robots, solar panels and all the connection of all the snap circuits, all things like that.
Well, that's an absolutely extraordinary story of innovation in education, which the incoming administration should do well to hearken to if it really wants to make a difference in the lives of so many deprived Nigerians. In a moment, I'll be joined in the studio by the founders and proprietors of that KNOSK charity secondary school in Abuja. But first, let's hear a bit more from the students and the teachers at that unique school.
My mom don't have any work to do, my dad don't have any work to do. I've not been in school for about 3 years.
We have been homeless, sporting from one place to another since the death of my father. Even after my primary school, I have to stay at home for 2 years because of no money to continue schooling. and they started thinking of marrying me out. But me as a girl, I don't want to marry out.
Girls who do not get an education are denied the ability to read and write. Some of them get trafficked, some of them are roped into vices, others are given out as child brides. But one thing is consistent. Uneducated girls are most likely to continue the cycle of poverty in their families.
No society can be safe and thrive if millions of young people are not educated or equipped to be productive citizens that can maximize themselves and contribute positively to society and nation building. You see, our nation today is grappling with many issues of violence, agitation, kidnapping, and all kinds of crimes and menace. And guess what? The perpetrators, the foot soldiers, are the young boys that were refused to train a few years or just about a decade ago. Today, millions of children, I mean millions of children, are not getting an education. This is a serious problem, but it's solvable. And that is why Irene and I have co-founded the Knox 100 Naira a Day Charity Secondary School in Kuje community, Abuja, Nigeria. This is targeting children from low-income family, less privileged children, out-of-school kids, and those children that are at the risk of, dropping out of secondary school.
Now, 100 Naira may not do much for you, but at the KNOSK school, it keeps a child from a low-income family in school.
Absolutely amazing stuff. Well, for more on this unique school and also what the educational priorities should be for the incoming administration, I'm joined now in the studio by the co-founders of the KNOSK 100 Naira a Day Secondary School, Irene and Kingsley Bangwell. Lovely to meet both of you.
Good to meet you too, sir.
And,
honored to be here tonight.
Brilliant job that you're both doing. I mean, it's just a remarkable thing. But let me start with you, Irene,
yes,
because
sir.
it says that you're the founder of the school and he's the co-founder. Yes. Besides ladies first, in any case. How did you come up with the idea of this 100 Naira a day school for poor children in Abuja?
So in a nutshell, from 2008 until about 2014-15, I was doing teacher trainings and I was working with private schools. And then I got to this moment where...
So you were training teachers?
Yes, I was training
right.
teachers.
Okay.
I'm very passionate about curriculum design
right.
and making learning engaging for children. But I found I was always having only private schools. And then I also had other consultant friends and we're all training the same schools. I got to that point where I was dissatisfied. And I said, look, there are many other schools who are not coming for these trainings. I need to know why they're not coming in. And so I just went on this research, and that's when I found out that, look, I'm arguing here with private school owners, and private schools only cater to 17% of Nigerian children.
Absolutely.
UNESCO says 83% of Nigerian children go to public schools. So I got restless and said, look, we need to do something about the quality of education for children who are going to public schools. And then that led us to the new realization that, the kids in public schools are pretty fortunate. There's quite a number that's out there that can't even make public schools. And so Kingsley had heard a whole lot of complaints from me, and he said, look, if you're restless, then you got to do something about it. And so we sat down together as a family and said, all right, so what are we thinking about? We're thinking about designing a public school type supportive learning environment, but for kids who've been out of school, because we really wanted to give them valuable education. They're poor kids. They need education to break out of poverty. Now, if they can't access education, or the education that they access is not quality enough, then the cycle continues in the next generation. And so that's how I dragged Kingsley along and said, we need to make a difference. And it's been an honor doing this the last 4 school years with him.
Well, that's a remarkable thing that you guys have been doing. And Kingsley, a lot of people will be wondering, 100 Naira per day? I mean, for students, I mean, that doesn't go a very long way. How do you fund the school?
Yeah, so in fact, when we started, thanks again for the opportunity, great opportunity, we appreciate it. When we started, we went to talk to a couple of people, even some mentors. The first question is, are you joking? 100 Naira a day? I remember someone asking me, do you have some oil money kept somewhere for you? Or you? In fact, when we went to market in the school, to tell a woman selling akara that we have 100 naira a day school. First thing she asked me, are you a politician? I said no. She asked, are you a church? If someone's buying asks, do you play football? Are you a footballer? Do you have money?
Have you got money stashed away
somewhere? So I would say it's been a journey of faith. So the model is they pay 100 naira to come to school. They're getting books, uniform, lunch. You know, the girls get sanitary pads every month. But the cost is 66,000 a term.
Right.
And our model is to ask, you know, middle income and high middle income people like Charles and co
I like that.
to possibly adopt.
So you make up for it through
to adopt
charitable
the child.
means.
Yes, adopt the child by paying the real fee or co-sponsor. You can contribute any amount.
That's a good idea. But I mean, the children themselves, they pay this on a daily basis, do they? They bring 100 naira to school every day?
So that's the model. So they have the option to bring the 100 naira every day, or they bring every week 500, or they bring 2,000 at the end of the month. But it's not mandatory. So we don't do school drive, school fees drive. What that means is whether you bring 100 naira a day or not, once you've passed the entrance examination, you scored 50 and above, you are guaranteed 6 years secondary school education, whether you pay that money or not, because we'll find someone to augment that cost for you.
Right. But at the rate at which you're going, you're able to give them quality education. In other words, the amount of money that you're able to raise guarantees the number. I mean, how many students have you got?
107.
Okay. So you can guarantee those students qualitative education.
That's the promise from the very first day. Regardless of how much we raise, the quality of learning will always be quality, because we're doing a lot of innovative, homegrown, resources to help learning keep it at par per time. So yes, it's premium education guaranteed. And
I mean, I was so impressed with the first. I think the first child that we saw in that Reuters report, who was like building their little thing, and the ambition and the dream, and robotics engineering and all the rest of it, and how they seem to be just so taken by it. But of course, millions of children in Nigeria do not attend school. We saw the statistics that you put up there, and that statistics from some other reports appear to have been overtaken, because the estimates right now is that it's much higher than 10.5 million, and that's the highest rate in the world.
18.4 million according to UNESCO 2022. That was a report in May. So it's worrisome. That's technically about the size of New York, or maybe 3 times the size of Singapore, if you want to put it in context. Because sometimes when we just give this number, 18.4 million, people can't contextualize it. But imagine the FCT 6 times. The population of the FCT has 3 million people.
That's Abuja, the federal capital.
And look at the other context. I always tell people that if government understand that you're actually going to be losing tax from 18 million future talents, then you begin to think differently about how you want to invest to make sure you bring those people.
That's a good way to try and sell it.
To bring those people into the productivity bracket and the tax bracket,
So what do they study in school? I understand it's mostly science. Is that for a reason?
Okay, so it's not mostly science. It's the approach to every subject that they study. I mean, we don't want Ministry of Education to watch this show and say, where exactly is that happening? So we have an approach to teaching all subjects that are scientific in nature. For example, we have a program called Hackathon. We do that every term. And so what happens is that at some point in every term, we give the kids projects to do, where they have to solve a real problem in society, build something, create a solution, integrate tech to do something. So we're making learning come alive in a different way.
It's almost vocational in some ways. I mean, a little bit.
Yes, we're trying to make learning realistic to them. So for poor children, education has to have value. To what end is this? And so the core value we teach the kids at the school is that when you solve problems in society, you've gotten your ticket out of poverty. So we have to give them opportunity to solve problems. So for example, typically, everyone has taken a lesson on classes of food, carbohydrate, protein. So one time, we told the kids to use the knowledge of classes of food and solve the malnutrition problem in Borno, Adamawa, and Yola.
It's very interesting.
It was crazy, Yobe rather. It was crazy what they had to do. They had to map what communities are closer, what crops grow faster, rail lines, train lines, transportation route. We're trying to just make their minds expand expanded because
brilliant.
we want them to step out of school with more than the result.
Absolutely.
We want them with value. So everywhere they go to, people want to help them. People want to be a part of their progress. And so that's why when Reuters came, they said we're mostly doing science because everything, we believe that there's science in art and there's science in everything. So it's really about critical thinking skills, creating, solving problems everywhere they go across all subject lines. So.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And that kind of relates to what you were talking about, that you're very interested in the curriculum.
Yes,
and
I am.
Well, we'll come back to that in a minute. But the president-elect, Bola Tinubu, has said that he'll bring reforms to Nigeria's education sector so those who emerge can be competitive globally. Bearing in mind how deplorable the education sector currently is in Nigeria, at all levels, all the strikes of ASU and the Academic Staff Union, and calls for improved conditions at Nigerian schools, he's got a big job on his hands, hasn't he?
Pretty big. If you look at the global competitive index around student employability, I think Nigeria ranks around 140 or something. I mean, that is inconceivable. We should have been talking about
disaster.
That. Yeah, it's a disaster already. So it is right on point for any incoming government to say that is going to be something they want to confront and engage frontally. And we want to see that happen. Because there has been a lot of such statement and conversation around the importance of education. We need to declare an emergency in education and all of that. Not emergency, war. Because we can't explain that kind of index, right? And so it's something that he needs to look at, we need to look at, and if I had an opportunity to speak to the incoming president to say, what should you prioritize? The first thing I'm going to say, find the right fit.
The right fit.
The right fit.
Right.
The leadership for that sector. It starts with the Minister for Education. The Minister for Education needs to be someone that understands education, understands the purpose, the function of education. You need to have that understanding and have the commitment for reform. Because someone once said, a friend of ours said, the Nigerian education system needs to be nuked. That means you just need to nuke it,
destroy it, and rebuild it.
Yes, because we are still using textbooks and concepts that,
So
20, 30 years ago, and then you're asking that person to use that to prepare for jobs of not the future, the present.
And basically, there is no way, there, that you can bring Nigeria into the 21st century, make it competitive without really dealing with the education sector.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what can this incoming government, I mean, we've all been impressed, really impressed with what you're doing at your school. What can the incoming government learn from a school such as yours in terms of innovation in the education sector?
So I'm so excited about this question. See, early last year, I came across a data by CC.org and Rise Africa on the disparity in the learning rate. So in some regions in Nigeria, rich children are learning at the rate of 76%, and poor kids are learning at 19%.
Right.
And so because
that's a dramatic difference.
The social inequality is shocking. The social inequality is already there. The cycle of poverty is already being perpetuated by those kind of indices. And so that brings me to say the very first thing the incoming president needs to do is to close that gap. And two factors are primarily responsible for that gap. The first is teacher quality. Many times in my experience working in education from 2008 until today, many school teachers are not exposed to subject expertise. So we can do a general workshop, the government can say we're training teachers, be kind to the kids, be thoughtful to the kids, but we're not getting subject mastery. So we're not having a workshop for introductory technology teachers or basic tech teachers or chemistry teachers or physics teachers where they are researching and seeing contemporary knowledge that's available, new researches, new trends in learning. So we're not having subject expertise. And so teachers can only do as much as they can. This is along with the fact that the good hands are leaving classrooms. Post-COVID, many quality teachers have left the classroom because teaching is not rewarding in Nigeria. So the incoming president needs to do something about that because that's contributing to the learning gap. The other part is that there needs to be resources. And when we talk about resources, I just go right back to the curriculum.
Right.
I mean, the NERDC is doing remarkable work. But when I look at the Nigerian curriculum, even on the best day, when I look at it, I know there are gaps. Even though in the school sector, everyone says, well, the curriculum is just a document, you take it and innovate as much as you can. There's a window to innovate on it. But we're looking at how can we start with a basic where in a place where someone is not innovative, the basic is quality enough to take us an edge. So we need to sit back and look at the curriculum. Meanwhile, I'm not talking about the topics in the curriculum, I'm talking about the perspective that the curriculum takes. So are children doing hand washing and then they're just learning how to hand wash, or they're going to be extended to learn about germs, to learn about, so, we need to deepen the conversation. So I feel like that is pressing, and that can only happen when the incoming government begins to make Nigerian education really learner-centered. And when I mean learner-centered, from design to implementation. Nigeria, last couple of months ago, UNESCO brought out a new data that 75% of Nigerian kids 14 years and below cannot read. And so it brings me to they can't read and write, and they can't do basic numeracy. So I'm sitting back here, shocked by that data, but surprised at the quality of textbooks in classrooms, because it looks like the textbooks that are being sent into schools are designed for teachers. If the kids can't read, then maybe we need to have storybooks in class for textbooks, so that we are starting where the learner is. And so whether it's with the design or whether it's with the implementation, it has to be relevant to the learner. We're meeting them at their needs today and then building up their skills for relevance post-education or classrooms.
That's very interesting. And I mean, she talked about the importance of the curriculum, which makes a lot of sense. She talked about, obviously, the training of teachers. I mean, how do you cope with that at your school? Is it easy to find well-trained teachers, or do you have to train them yourself? I don't understand.
I think you've added a couple of gray hairs in the last 4 years, and one of them is because we need to find teachers. You find them, then you need to look at quality. You're constantly training and all of that. So the gap is huge. We're not attracting the most, shall I say, intellectually capable hands into the educational sector. It's a problem. In some countries, you need to have first class for you to be a teacher. And so what are they doing? They are using their best to do what? Replicate the next generation of the best. But teaching that's not what's happening in Nigeria. And so we need to really look at that, invest in education. Like you said, UNESCO recommendation, 26% of your national budget and all of that. I think that it's even beyond that. One of the things the incoming government needs to do is look at education administration and bring in a lot of digitization. I'll give you a practical example. If you want to start a school, how do you find the regulation or the guidelines on how to start a school? You need to physically visit a government office, walk through several offices and all of that, and then maybe get verbal information, not even a document, right? And then in terms of doing some kind of their accreditation process, everything is so manual. What stops us from having a government or a system whereby every school, the minister can sit down in his office, get on the platform and click a school and see who the principal is, who the vice principal is, how many students do you have, how many are male, how many are female, how many in junior classes. We can do all of this digitally, and I can register my school sitting down somewhere. A couple of years ago, for you to renew your driver's license, you needed to go to the FIRS office. But today, I can sit in my office and do everything and then just go there for capture. So it's showing us what technology can do. We need to do that in education so that we can ensure that we're doing adequate supervision, we have accurate data, and then we can be able to see where the gaps are and then begin to engage them. I'll give you an instance. The federal government is spending quite a lot in recruiting and supporting teachers. But we know that there are schools where teachers don't go to school and they're getting paid. You can't do proper supervision if you continue to do this manually. So we need to bring in digital, instruments and technology to help us improve supervision, so that even the 10 or 8% we're investing in education, we can get better and greater value for money. I believe that if we can do greater work in terms of supervision, we'll get greater value for the money we're spending currently in education. We're not getting that.
Very briefly, because say what
I just wanted to add something, that government can do this. The National Examinations Council, NECO, is phenomenal. Most of the stuff is digital. So we're not sitting down here to say government is not doing anything. So NECO is a case in point. Any information you want from NECO, you can get it online. And it's so sweet just working with them. And so that tells us we can scale. using, for instance, what's happening with NECO. But then I also want to say something. We're not even giving enough credit to the teachers in the classrooms today. I know every time we get on the media like this, we start to talk about how the quality is poor, but people are present. People are struggling with inadequate resources, difficult to manage situations, difficult to live with income bracket. And so I just recommend everyone, if you know a teacher, hug a teacher. Teaching in Nigeria is not the sweetest thing anybody can do. It's cumbersome. So for example, we're running an innovative school and we're tracking children's learning data on a daily basis. We're asking teachers, you need to give classwork, you need to populate it on a spreadsheet. We need to see how many children are learning every day. That's a key part of what we're doing at the KNOSK, and that's manual. And these are people combining several classes because you're trying to make do with all the limited resources that you have. So I want to recommend to government that we need to make the sector attractive so that more people come. When it's attractive, the people in there earn more. And when more people come, it reduces the burden of the people that are already there. Teaching in Nigeria is tough. And so kudos to every teacher, any part of the world, any part of Nigeria, rural, urban, private, public sector, we give it to them because it's tough to work in Nigeria in these circumstances. And don't forget, entrepreneurs or school leaders like myself keep saying we need to do more. These kids, and the pace is not right, the rate is not good enough, or we need to pick up pace on other people's back and maybe not extra income. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to say big shout out to all the teachers in Nigeria.
Well, I want to thank both of you very much indeed for coming in, and congratulations for the excellent work you're doing. Keep doing it, and I hope someone in the new governments coming in, because that's what we're focusing on now. It was listening to this and watching you, and commendations once again. And Irene and Kingsley Bangwell are the proprietors and co-founders of the KNOSK 100 Naira a day secondary school in Abuja. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir, for having us.